Washington, D.C. Organizers partnered with advocacy groups including Everytown for Gun Safety, and as hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital, supporters also rallied in all 50 states. And even across the Atlantic, protesters chanted "Save Our Kids" in London outside the American Embassy. In Paris, American expats held signs in support of gun control in front of the Eiffel Tower. Students, teachers, and grieving parents from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School spoke at a rally in Parkland, Florida.
My classmates and I laid helplessly on the floor, hearing and feeling rapid gunfire. As I am aware that the horrific tape that replays in my head will never be rewinded, I am also aware that the need for change is overdue.
Sadly, we will be repeating this, and it could easily be in your city or your town. This stops now!
In Washington, D.C., celebrities performed, including Jennifer Hudson and Broadway stars Lin-Manuel Miranda and Ben Platt.
No matter what they tell you, tomorrow there'll be more of us.
Many of the speakers were students sharing their stories about gun violence, including a 19-year-old from Chicago whose brother was shot and killed in 2006.
It's time for the nation to realize gun violence is more than just a Chicago problem or a Parkland problem, but it's an American problem.
Lawmakers responded to today's rallies. Florida Senator Marco Rubio tweeted that the protests are a, quote, good way of making a point, but making a change will require both sides finding common ground. White House Deputy Press Secretary Lindsay Walters released a statement applauding the courage of the young Americans, quote, exercising their First Amendment rights. She also pointed to the president's support for fixing the national background check system, the Stop School Violence Act, and the new rule issued yesterday by the Justice Department banning bump stocks. Among the hundreds of thousands of students attending today's March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C., is a group from Patriot High School in Bristow, Virginia. NewsHour Weekend's Christopher Booker is with them.
They gathered at 8 a.m. this morning in the parking lot of a grocery store in Haymarket, Virginia.
If you've already checked in, you can go ahead and get on.
Boarding buses for the hour-long ride to Washington, D.C. to join hundreds of thousands of others who'd come from all over the country to call for stricter gun control. Seniors Megan Black and Liv Muma helped organize this trip.
As soon as the Parkland shooting happened, we realized that we had to do something about it, but we didn't realize what we could do.
Like so many students in America, gun violence has been a regular part of their school experience. They've practiced lockdown drills since elementary school.
Other generations didn't have to deal with this. They didn't have mass shootings. I mean, Columbine was one of the first big ones in our country, and it hasn't stopped since then.
Muma and Black say they learned about the Parkland shooting that left 17 students, teachers, and administrators dead through social media, watching the raw video coming in through Snapchat and Twitter.
So I was in school watching the videos these kids run out of their high school over the dead bodies of their fellow students. And I just cried and cried, and I came home and cried some more. And so it was a couple days after that when we really started our movement.
Around 10 a.m., the students arrived in downtown Washington, D.C. to join the March for Our Lives. But it wasn't just kids. Parents, teachers, and even political donors joined the march. Ambassador Al Hoffman Jr. is a major supporter of Republicans, but in the wake of the Parkland shooting, he says he will not back politicians who don't support an assault weapons ban and other gun control measures.
I felt that it was absolutely necessary that I get involved. You know, this may be my last hurrah, but I can't give up. We've got to get this under control.
He says if Republicans don't act on gun control measures, there will be consequences in the midterm elections in November.
And I'm a good Republican, but I'll tell you that we're in deep doo-doo if they don't pay attention to this now.
The Parkland shooting has activated the political awareness of many young people here for the first time. This group of juniors from Fairfield, Connecticut, traveled to Washington, D.C. this morning.
Everyone just was signing up. There was not even enough bus room for everyone to come because so many people showed their interest.
They wanted to come.
Yeah.
And for people who have been personally affected by gun violence, they say this time does indeed feel different. Rachel Callahan is a high school teacher in Baltimore. She was a freshman at Virginia Tech in 2007 when a gunman killed 32 people, including a girl who lived on the floor of her dorm. So as someone who has experienced this firsthand, are you hopeful that something might finally change after this?
Yes, because of these students, because of their activism and their vocal outrage on the internet. Just looking at this shows I think they're gonna make changes.
Joining me now from Washington, D.C. is NewsHour Weekend's Christopher Booker. Chris, it seems there are several different motivations for these students.
Yeah, that's right. We've spoken with a number of different students from suburban schools and students from urban schools. And what's interesting is that they're all here for the same reason. We spent some time with a group of students from Jacksonville, Florida, and while they say they're frustrated that the violence that has fallen on their community often doesn't even make it to the front of their newspaper, let alone the national media, they feel an encouragement that they're able to join this national movement and that finally something might be happening and that they can add their voice and their experience to something that's much larger.
What is it that the kids you were talking to are expecting to happen after actions like today's?
What's interesting is, as we were riding on the bus this morning, we asked the students if they believe there will be any effective change as a result of today's assembly. And they actually don't think anything will come from this. They say they're well aware of where Congress stands. They're well aware that Congress is not looking to make any major changes to gun legislation. What they're actually focused on is what happens in November. They believe that today is about coming together, building momentum, and backing candidates that are interested in changing gun laws in America.
NewsHour Weekend's Chris Booker. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Howard.